Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today I am tasking myself with fixing the New York Jets. But before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that you can follow along with me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast. You can call in, leave me your question, and I'll try to get to it on the show. So each of the last 2 years, I've made these videos where I've tried to fix the Jets for 2019 and 2020. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but I'm going to do it again in 2021. And for the third year in a row, I'm picking a new head coach. So we're going to start there. We're going to do a whole bunch of different stuff. We're going to do free agency. We're going to do cuts. We're going to do the draft. There's a lot to get into, and I'm excited. So let's start with the head coach. So obviously, Adam Gase is gone after this year. Jets are likely going 0-16. They're likely getting the first overall pick. You are not bringing back Adam Gase, who has been unquestionably the worst coach in football over the last 2 years. So you have a few different scenarios in which you can go. Go the retread route, like a Doug Peterson or like a Jim Harbaugh, which scares the life out of me. I want no part of either of those guys. Or you can go the college route. PJ Fleck, Matt Campbell, Pat Fitzgerald. Those are intriguing options. Not going that direction either. You can go offensive coordinator. There's a bunch of different offensive coordinators in the mix right now who could be looking for coaching candidacies. Eric Bieniemy is a name. Brian Daboll's a name. But I'm going with a different offensive coordinator. It's Joe Brady. He is climbing up my list a ton. What he's been able to do in Carolina is really, really impressive. He's 31 years old right now, which is the same age as Sean McVay when he was hired by the Rams. And I say that because Joe Brady gives off a lot of Sean McVay vibes. In 2017 and 2018, he was an offensive assistant with the New Orleans Saints. Saints have a pretty good offense, as we know, and he was able to pick up a lot of stuff there. He took that to LSU in 2019 as their passing game coordinator. And we saw what Joe Burrow was able to do in that offense. They had a historic level offense. What he was able to do with those wide receivers is impressive. What he was able to do just with that passing game in general has been extremely impressive. And then take it to the NFL, he goes with Matt Rule, who in each of the last 2 years I've done this is who I wanted for the job. So Brady goes with Matt Rule to Carolina, and it's not a perfect situation. They are getting a ton out of that offense. They lost their best player in Christian McCaffrey. Teddy Bridgewater's, he's a game manager, but he's putting up career numbers. Robbie Anderson looks fantastic. They are an explosive offense. They're putting up a decent amount of points for what they have around them. Like I said, with Teddy Bridgewater's career high in rating, yards per attempt, touchdowns, yards per game. Like this guy's having a really good year. I don't think he's the long-term answer there in Carolina, but they're getting a ton out of him. PJ Walker, he had him in the XFL a few months ago. He threw for 260 yards a couple of weeks ago. And I know that's not a whole lot to write home about in today's NFL, but look at what the Jets have done on offense the last 2 years. And you're saying that, what could Joe Brady do with a guy like Trevor Lawrence or worst case scenario, Justin Fields? I would think it'd be a lot of fun on offense, which is what we're trying to do here. Robbie's been good. Mike Davis has been good. The entire offense has been good without Christian McCaffrey. So that is definitely something that's enticing. So that's my hire for head coach. So now you need an offensive and defensive coordinator, right? So my offensive coordinator that I'd bring in as well is Kyle Shanahan's right-hand man, Mike McDaniel. He is the run game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. He's he was an offensive assistant in Houston, Washington, Atlanta, and he was a wide receiver coach in Washington and Cleveland. Like I said, he's really been Kyle Shanahan's right-hand guy, and players love this guy. Kittle wants him wherever he goes. Kittle came out and said, wherever I'm playing, I want this guy around. And I think it'd be interesting to have another young mind who is an up-and-coming guy. He was on my 10 head coaching list in my original list a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago at this point. I forget when I made that video. But I do think he's due for, at minimum, an offensive coordinator job. He's been, again, Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds in the game, his right-hand man. Let's get him on board. Let's bring him in here with a guy like Joe Brady. That'd be a ton of fun. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm kind of going with a little bit of a retread. I'll explain. I like this guy as a coordinator. Don't like him as a head coach, but he does have head coaching experience, which I think is important when you have a young head coach. Like Sean McVay had Wade Phillips as defensive coordinator. So I am hiring Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator. He, again, underachieved as a head coach. No denying that. But in Seattle in 2013 and 14, had a phenomenal defense. He brings experience, and he's someone that I would trust as a defensive coordinator. Again, I don't want him taking over as a head coach. I don't think he's a very good head coach. But let's not minimize the importance it is to have someone in the room who knows what it's like to be a head coach. So I would be completely fine with him running the defense. I'm not, again, I don't want him running the entire show. Leave that up to Joe Brady, but I think it would be a lot of fun, and that's what my staff would look like. So let's get into the money now. Cap space, the Jets are expected, this is according to Over the Cap, to have $80.9 million in cap space. Now do cuts first so we could free up some moves. First cut, Henry Anderson, goodbye. $8.2 million saved there. See you later. Alex Lewis, $5.4 million. He's also cut. He's had a tough year after a pretty promising year in 2019, at least I thought. The Jets just, I don't know what's going on there. There's some crazy rumors going around right now with Alex Lewis, but those two cuts brings the Jets up to $94.5 million, which that's a ton of cap space. That's a good thing. So before we get into free agency, let's re-sign a couple of key guys. Marcus May, we're absolutely bringing back 4 years, $38 million. That comes to $9.5 million a year. That would put him in the top 15 for paid safeties in the league. I think he's been really good since he's moved back to free safety. Struggled earlier in the year when he's playing strong safety, but I really am confident in him being a decently long-term solution. A 4-year deal that would take him into his young 30s, which is okay. His early 30s is fine. And $9.5 million, that might be on a little bit towards the high end for a safety. He's not going to get up into like the $13 or $14 million a year, or the Jamal Adams $17+ million a year. He's a solid player. It'll be around $10 million. I'm going to say slightly less at 9.5, but even if it gets up to $10 million, I still think you do it. He's one of the better safeties in football, and I think it's important to have a guy like that next to Ashtyn Davis. I really do think Davis is going to start next year. And the safety duo being Marcus May and Ashtyn Davis, I'm definitely comfortable with. I would also like to bring back Brian Poole. I think he's been one of the better Jets signings over the last couple of years. I am bringing him back on a 3-year, $27 million contract. That's $9 million a year to be the slot corner. He's been a really good presence in that slot. I think he deserves a little bit of term. So 3 years, $27 million. That's going to be my guy in free agency for corner. We'll explain how I'm going to fix corner more on that later when we get into the draft, but I'm bringing back Poole to be in the slot. We'll also bring back Sergio Castillo. Sure, he could be our kicker. 1 year, $1 million. I'm letting Perryman walk, McDougal walk, Jenkins, Flacco, Gore, and Elflin walk. Perryman's maybe the one controversial one. Some people would like him back as wide receiver 4. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. It all depends on what he's asking for. I'm going to address wide receiver a little bit in free agency and the draft as well. So I'll let Perryman walk. Someone else can pay him, and we'll see if he can stay healthy long term somewhere else. I wouldn't be necessarily upset if the Jets brought him back for the right price. I'm just personally not going to do it. I'm not taking the risk that he is going to play a healthy season because we haven't seen it yet. So after those signings, I have about $75 million in cap space. So what's the first thing that I'm going to do? I'm going to sign Allen Robinson. 4 years, $76 million. That's $19 million a year. Is it a lot for a wide receiver? Sure. This guy, though, is a top 10 receiver, and he's dealt with awful quarterback play. Blake Bortles to Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles to back to Mitch Trubisky. Woof. Get him in here. I know he's a little bit on the older side. He's going to be 28, but if you sign him for a 4-year deal, that brings him to 32. I still think he'll be productive at that point in his career, and that just helps out your young quarterback so much to have a wide receiver like that. Mims on the other side, Crowder in the slot. That's a receiving trio that you can be excited about for Trevor Lawrence. Spoiler alert, I know we didn't get into the mock draft yet, but I would go all out to bring in a guy like Allen Robinson. Yes, there are some other guys on the receiving market. Juju Smith-Schuster's a name that's brought up a lot. I prefer Allen Robinson over him. Kenny Golladay could hit the market. There's other guys who can hit the market, but Robinson's, to me, is the best guy, so I want to bring him in. Next up, we're going with the Ravens. The Jets always seem to be prying free agents away from the Ravens. So Matt Judon, 4 years, $68 million, $17 million a year. Yes, that is 2 primary free agents. The Jets have a ton of money. They're going to throw a ton of money at those guys, but I don't expect them to do a whole lot in free agency outside of that. There's just going to be a couple supplemental pieces after that. I'd like to sign a running back. Jamal Williams is someone who I like a lot. 2 years, $10 million, so $5 million a year. He averaged over 4 yards per carry the last 2 years behind Aaron Jones. He can receive out of the backfield too. He's good in pass protection. I think you bring him in, pair him with a mid-round back, more on that later, and have Michael Pirine, and that's fine for a running back trio. I don't think you have to spend out of the bank. I'm completely cool with running in a $5 million running back and rolling with that for next year. Lastly, the Jets are going to need a new backup quarterback as well, so A.J. McCarron will be my backup. 1 year, $2 million. You bring him in. Former Alabama product. I'm okay with Joe Flacco going somewhere else. Bring in a younger guy. That's fine with me. That leaves me with $32 million after free agency. We got to do the draft, and first we have to talk about the Sam Darnold trade. Yes, Sam Darnold is going to get traded. If you don't like that, I am sorry. It's just that this is the reality of the situation. It's going to happen. They're not going to run it back for a fourth year. It's just not going to happen. So I am trading Sam Darnold to the Chicago Bears for pick number 48. A second rounder is what I think the Jets are going to get for Sam Darnold. I don't think they're going to get multiple picks. A lot of people are thinking a second and a fifth. I think you're just getting a second rounder. So I'll trade him to the Bears. You can go to the NFC North, get him in the NFC. That's fine. Round 1, pick 1. Trevor Lawrence. Who else is it going to be? This is the guy that can build a franchise up and bring a franchise back. He has elite arm talent. He's good on the run. Great size. He is probably the best prospect. No, he is the best prospect since Andrew Luck. Really exciting to get this guy on the team. I hope the Jets end up with the number 1 pick. It looks like they're on a fast track for that. So Trevor Lawrence is the obvious selection. With the Seattle pick, right now I have around 26. I am selecting Wyatt Davis, offensive guard from Ohio State. In some mocks, they have him going a little bit earlier. Some mocks, I've seen him in the later first round, like towards the very end. If he's there, I think this is a no-brainer for Joe Douglas. He loves building up the offensive line. A guard like that, along with drafting a franchise quarterback, is a huge first round and a good step in the right direction. The guard play this year has been kind of bad. Greg Van Roten probably comes back. Maybe Cameron Clark can play. We haven't seen him yet, so I don't necessarily know. But I have the Jets adding a guard in this draft class. The interior has to be addressed in the draft. Round 2, pick 33, I have Patrick Jones II, an edge out of Pittsburgh. Back-to-back double-digit sacks there. You need help at edge. You put him on the other side of Judon. Get him after the passer. Let's have some fun. Let's help out Quinnen Williams, who's getting that interior pressure. He's had a really good year, but they have no edge presence whatsoever. Desperately need help in that regard. Let's do it. Round 2, pick 48, I'm going Tyson Campbell, cornerback from Georgia. He's someone who I think can start from day one. He's probably projected to go somewhere around the second round. I've seen it, again, mock drafts in December is very difficult to pinpoint where guys are going to be. We see guys who, you thought definitely a first rounder last year. They fall to round 2, some to round 3. Guys who were supposed to go later come up. We don't know, but Tyson Campbell, I think if he's available, which he was in the mock drafts that I was doing at pick 48, I'm all over it. 6'2", 185, a cornerback who could start from day one. I like that. The Jets need help at corner, so no brainer. Round 3, pick 65, Seth Williams, wide receiver out of Auburn. He's 6'3", 224, a big body receiver, good red zone threat. This is going to be my Brashad Perryman replacement or my wide receiver 4. I think he can go up and get the football, be a nice red zone target potentially, and hopefully he's a better third rounder than Ardarius Stewart or Chad Hansen and those guys in the world. So give me Seth Williams out of Auburn. Round 3, pick 90. This is the time you take a running back. The mid-rounds, Chuba Hubbard, running back from OK State, 6'1", 207. He's a patient runner, good in pass protection, good vision, a running back room of Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and at this point, LaMichael Pirine. That's good enough for me. I think there's some upside there where he could potentially be a starter at some point in this league. So give me Chuba Hubbard. Round 4, pick 103. Give me Myron Cunningham, an offensive tackle out of Arkansas. He's huge. 6'6", 300 pounds. He's a big boy. Long arms. He needs some work on his technique. But in round 4, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get guys like that. I always think that Joe Douglas is going to look to continue to add to the offensive line. Don't know what the heck we can expect from Chuma Doga. So why not add another body to that offensive line in the 4th round? In round 5, pick 152, I'm going Justin Ross, wide receiver from Clemson. 6'3", 205. An injury kept him out of 2020. But he has played with Trevor Lawrence in the past. Are we going early 2010s New York Jets with the Scotty McKnight and I almost said Sam Darnold, Mark Sanchez combo? Maybe a little bit, but Drafting 2 receivers is something that I think Joe Douglas should have did in last year's draft. Supposedly this is a really good draft class again, so why not double dip, take another wide receiver in the 5th round, and just add depth, because we always know that there are injuries on this team, especially at the wide receiver position. Round 5, pick 159, I'm going Patrick Johnson, edge defender from Tulane. 6'3", 255, and what I like about him, he's versatile. He could play all over the field. They line him up in all different scenarios, which maybe he just translates to some sort of a special team guy at the next level. But in round 5, why not take a swing on a position of need, get as many bodies in there as humanly possible at edge. So I'm going Johnson out of Tulane. Round 6, pick 192, the last selection in this draft class. Trey McBride, tight end, Colorado State. He's more of a run blocking guy. He's a physical tight end, though. He's tough, 6'4", 260. Why not give it a go? The Jets haven't had a good tight end play this year. I think Chris Herndon bounces back, but if not, this could potentially be an insurance policy. Who knows what you're getting out of a 6th-round tight end, but I think it's worth investigating because it's a weaker position for the New York Jets. So why not just add to it? Let's take a look at the depth chart. Obviously, at quarterback, we have Lawrence, McCarron, and Morgan. Running back room, Williams, Hubbard, and Pirine. Wide receivers looking a lot nicer. Robinson on the outside and Mims on the outside with Crowder in the slot. You have Ross, who you drafted, and Williams, who you drafted on the other side with Berrios as a potential backup slot. I'm cool with that. Going across on the offensive line, Becton, Davis, McGovern, Van Roten, Fant. I think you bring back Fant. It doesn't hurt. I think he's been pretty productive this year. Herndon, I'm running back at tight end this year to round out the offense. Again, I'm not 100% concerned about Chris Herndon. I know he's had a bad year, but I do think he is a candidate to bounce back. There's a lot of talent. I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. As for the defense at edge, obviously you have Judon, who you added on one side, and Jones II, who you added on the other side. Williams, Fatukasi, and Phillips I have starting on the defensive line with Franklin Myers and Shepard rotating in. Linebacker, Mosley, Lange, Cashman, and the Cashman's just always hurt, so I'd rather have Lange back there ahead of Cashman and Mosley. I just think you're going to be stuck with him on this roster. As for the cornerbacks, Hall and Campbell on the outside, yes, they're a little bit younger, but I'm excited about Hall. I think he's going to be good enough to start, or at least have Bless Austin compete with Hall. Maybe Bless is, better at going into year 3 and with a real training camp. Poole you bring back in the slot, and May and Davis as your safety duo. I'm more than comfortable with. So that is my fix for the New York Jets for 2021. Let me know what you guys think about my fix in the comments below or on social media. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll talk to you next time.